Hello, everyone. Welcome to the To Kill a Mockingbird podcast. This is the first episode of a three-part series, and bear with me. This is my first time making a podcast, so if I'm not the most fluent or precise with my wording, apologies. Today, I will be talking about To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. And this episode is going to cover the first 10 chapters of the book and give a brief discussion about them. A quick notice is that this book does cover some points and themes that people may or may not be comfortable with. One more quick thing is that I highly recommend reading this book, as it is an amazing piece of literature, and I enjoyed it a lot. Also, these will be some of my opinions, so they may be biased and different from you guys's. But anyway, without further ado, let's get right into Chapter 1. The novel begins with Scout remembering the events that led to her brother, Jem, breaking his arm around when he was 13 years old. She gives the reader a background of her family and how it started with a fur trader named Simon Finch Cornwall from England. She narrates how Mr. Finch moved up the Alabama River, crossing the Atlantic, and settled in Finch's Landing. We are introduced to Calpurnia, their maid, as well as the neighborhood around them. We are then introduced to the Radley family. The reader is told about how Boo Radley, one of the Radley kids' son, got involved with the wrong crowd and got sentenced to a state school. His father, Mr. Radley, asked the judge to release Boo into his custody and placed him under house arrest for 15 years. We are told stories of how Boo would commit these terrible atrocities against the town, and things that occurred were attributed to him immediately. The chapter ends when Jem and Scout meet Charles Baker Harris, commonly known as Dill, who moves next door with his Aunt Rachel Haverford. He becomes interested in the stories and strikes an instant friendship with the two brothers and makes a planned attempt to lure Boo out of the house. So about this chapter, we can already kind of start to get a feel for the inhabitants of Maycomb and what the town is like, and it kind of creates kind of an older feeling, which is, the book is old, but it kind of creates an older feeling than when the book was made, and I personally kind of really enjoyed that nice touch. Chapter 2. As September sets in, Dill leaves Maycomb for Marion, Mississippi, just before Jem and Scout started school. Scout is excited to begin first grade since she has been watching other kids go to school from her treehouse. Scout's first day, however, did not go as well as she thought it would. Miss Caroline Fisher, her teacher, gets frustrated that Scout can already read and tells that her father should stop teaching her because he does not know how to teach. Miss Fisher is new to Maycomb and hence does not understand the social structure of the town, since she is from northern Alabama, not southern Alabama. And she awkwardly confronts a student named Walter Cunningham, who comes from a very poor family. She offers to buy him lunch because he didn't carry any, but Walter says he has no means of paying her back. And Scout explains that the Cunninghams don't take what they can't pay back. Although she went well, the teacher sends Scout to stand in a corner. This confuses Scout further as she was just trying to help explain to Miss Fisher. So that's the end of Chapter 2. This chapter kind of gives us a bit of an insight about Scout. We can infer that even though she is young, she's very intelligent due to her father, Atticus, teaching her how to read at a young age. We can also start to see a bit of foreshadowing as the Elwells are mentioned in this chapter, in which they have great importance later on in the book. Chapter 3. Scout vents her frustrations on Walter at the playground for the earlier ordeal. But Jem stops her after realizing that Walter is the son of a man Atticus had defended in court. Atticus, being their father, is also a lawyer, which is a very important detail that comes into play later in the book. He invites Walter home for lunch, but Walter is hesitant at first. He later joins Scout and Jem when they are walking away. During lunch, Scout is scolded by Calpurnia by asking Walter why he is using syrup in his food. Scout gets upset and talks to Atticus about Calpurnia before heading back to school. Miss Caroline gets upset with Burris Elwell's hair because he has lice, and she sends him home to avoid infecting it to others. Burris, of course, laughs and says he won't be coming back as he is one of the Elwells, and an older student explains that the Elwells only attend school the first day to please the officer that makes them go to school. When the teacher asks Burris to sit down, he insults her and drives her to tears. The chapter ends with Scout saying to Atticus that she will keep going to school only if Atticus will keep reading to her as they used to. In this chapter, we get to see more of the different kinds of people in the town of Maycomb socially as well as economically. In this chapter, we get a bit more insight about how wise Atticus is as a person and father. He says the quote, "You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it." This quote helps teach Scout about different kinds of people and how being different doesn't make them exactly right or wrong. It just makes them different. Chapter 4. By now, a whole year has passed in the book, and Scout isn't scared of passing the Radley place alone. Even though she runs past, one day she spots a tiny thing at the knothole of an oak tree at the edge of the Radley lot. It turns out to be 2 pieces of gum wrapped in foil, which she takes. Dill returns for the summer, and they get so excited that they forget about the knothole. Jem comes up with a game called Boo Radley, which involves reenacting the stories they heard about the Radley family, including the one where Boo stabs his father. But one day, Atticus finds them during their performance and gives them a stern lecture. Scout is willing to comply with her father and stop, and when Jem says she's acting like a girl, a phrase that will make her do whatever Jem asks of her, as Scout does not like being referred to as a girl. Scout explains what scares her the most is that when they were rolling a tire down, Scout was rolling in a tire down the hill, and she hit the Radley porch. And then she heard laughing from inside the house. In this chapter, we can start to piece together a bit of early themes in the story. Harper Lee does a beautiful job of introducing and incorporating equality into the story. It molds around the location of Maycomb, Alabama, which in this time people were very prejudiced towards blacks. Harper goes through the eyes of a child who hasn't formed these prejudiced opinions and keeps an open mind thanks to her father. One more thing worth mentioning is literary devices Lee uses to enhance her writing. One of my favorite examples from this chapter is that Scout saying that she popped out like a cork when she exited the tire. Chapter 5. During this chapter, Scout has been pushed out of the group a bit more by her brother as well as Dill. She begins to spend time more with her widowed neighbor, Maudie Atkinson. Miss Maudie tells her that she grew up at Finch Landing with the Finch siblings. Miss Maudie reminds Scout of Atticus, and she tells Scout more about the Radley family, and for the first time, Scout starts to see Boo of less a monster and more of an actual person, which is a nice realization early on in the story. She becomes more interested when she discovers Jem and Dill's plan to deliver a note to Boo through a hole in a loose shutter. she's very reluctant at first, but she agrees to serve as a lookout as Jem delivers the note. But Atticus, being the very smart man he is, he's already on to them, and he warns them again to stop bothering Boo. Here we can see Scout interacting with her neighbor Miss Maudie, and we can see that Scout really respects her. She respects her elders, and she cares a fair bit about her neighbors and her community, and she can really relate to Miss Maudie, which is very nice. We can also see that Scout really cares about her brother, Jem, by looking out for him during the slipping of the note, which she did not want to do. And that kind of helps us form an early thought about their relationship together as brother and sister, which is just another nice touch by Harper Lee. Chapter 6. Before Dill turns back to his house, he and Jem plan to peek through the windows of the Radley house. Scout, being concerned, tries to stop them unsuccessfully, as Atticus has now warned them twice. As they unsuccessfully try to peek through the window, they see a man's shadow approaching and start to run off as a shotgun is fired. They narrowly escape through the fence out the back, but Jem gets caught in the wire and unfortunately loses his pants getting out. A group gathers outside the Radley house to see why a shotgun was fired. Mr. Radley suspects that it was a black man trying to steal from them, when in reality it was just the three kids. And the three kids show up out front trying to kind of act normal when Miss Stephanie Crawford points out that Jem is not wearing pants. Dill, quick thinking, however, lies and says that he won Jem's pants playing strip poker by the fish pond. And then later that night, Jem and Scout are talking, and to Scout's disapproval, Jem goes back for his pants to safeguard their secret. Scout tries very hard to convince him, but he still leaves, and he thankfully returns with his pants. During the chapter, Jem kind of seems to start becoming more distant as he's pushing Scout out of the group a little bit. Scout really not kind of understanding why. She still helps her brother, showing off a very caring side to Scout. And this is just I think, a very nice addition to the story, again. And, yeah. Chapter 7. As school restarts, Scout is worried about Jem's quietness since that incident at the Radleys. He reveals that when he returned for his pants, Jem tells Scout he found them stitched up and hanging on a fence, as if someone knew he'd come back for them. That is a very cryptic detail, I feel like. When I read that, I got a little, shivers down my spine at first. I thought that was very, very, a nice detail. Kind of foreshadowing and also creating suspense as to who sewed the pants and who was watching them. Also, in the novel, it's mentioned that it wasn't a clean sewing job, like something Jem would do. Anyway, as they walk past the old tree at the edge of the Radley property, they notice a ball of twine tucked in the knothole. At this point, Jem is convinced someone is leaving the things for them, so they take whatever they find in the hole from now on. One day, they decided to leave a thank you note for whoever was doing it, and they wrote it, and they were going down to the tree, but they found the knothole cemented. Jem asks Nathan Radley on his way home why he cemented the tree, but Nathan tells him he did it because the tree was dying. And he said that when trees die, you put cement in the middle of them to help them from decaying. But Jem, being as smart as he is, he can see through this lie quite easily. This chapter is an interesting one, because throughout it we can see characters start to change a bit. The first and foremost being Jem. And as Scout describes it, he's starting to go through an odd stage. Us readers can kind of infer that this is likely puberty and Jem maturing and growing up. And I think this is a very nice touch, because it makes the characters feel much more genuine in a way. It makes them jump to life and seem like real people. And this is something Lee incorporates into the story very frequently and very well, which I really enjoyed as a reader. And we can start to see a theme of small-town southern living, as the kids are making up rumors about a man being a monster when in reality he's just most likely a shy person, and they're reenacting on it and doing all these things as goofball kids would do. And that's just a nice, once again, I've been saying a nice touch a lot, but I really feel like it is. And Lee also loves using literary devices, similes and metaphors to be a bit more specific. And my favorite one from this chapter is when Scout says Jem is dancing like an Egyptian, which is also one of my more favorite songs. Chapter 8. The weather changes as the kids have their first view of snow. Since school is cancelled, as this is the first snow day they've had in many years, they decide to make a snowman. A very muddy snowman. And that night, after the snowman building, Scout is awoken by Atticus to get ready to leave because Miss Maudie's home is on fire. After a while, after all the neighbors and the fire trucks coming in, the fire has finally died down, it's stopped, but Miss Maudie's home is completely and utterly destroyed. Atticus discovers a blanket, a strange blanket, found on Scout's shoulder. Neither Jem or Scout can remember who wrapped it around Scout. But when Atticus points it out, it dawns on them that it very well could have been Boo Radley. Jem then tells Atticus about the secrets, about like the gifts in the hole, and the evening in the Radley's garden when he found his pants stitch. And Jem's a little panicky while saying this, and Atticus calms him down by promising him that the blanket will be a secret between them. And in the morning, the kids find Miss Maudie sitting in her backyard, not really aggravated about the loss of her house, however. She admits that she never liked the house, and she was already planning to replace the house. And she says she was more worried about her neighbors during the fire. This chapter is a really nice introduction to what Miss Maudie's like. She's a kind old woman who wanted everyone to stay safe, even when her entire home was on fire. We also get a bit more insight into Boo Radley, and what he is like as a person. He's starting to become less and less of a monster, and more of a shy but kind soul, which I like that as that keeps progressing throughout the story. This is the part where, when I was reading, I started to lose a bit of interest. But once I read this chapter, it kind of rekindled the flame, the interest I had when first reading. Because things picked up, and that was nice. That was a nice kind of thing. And another nice touch is Jem. We can really start to see Jem maturing as he realizes that he should tell his father about the things that have been going on and about all the knot and the tree and stuff. And yeah, that is, and I feel that's very important for Jem's character growth. Chapter 9. Christmas is approaching, and the kids realize Atticus had taken the case of Tom Robinson, a black man accused of raping a white woman. A classmate announces at the news at the school and embarrasses Scout. And Atticus explains Tom Robinson is a member of Calpurnia's church, who is their maid, and defending him is the right thing to do. Since the case won't go into trial until next summer, Atticus tells Scout to keep her cool when people tease her about the case. At the Christmas party, Francis, Aunt Alexandria's grandson, calls Atticus names to Scout, and she retaliates by fighting him. Uncle Jack, which is one of Atticus's brothers, immediately takes Francis' side without hearing Scout's side of the story. This upsets Scout, and Scout tells Jack what Francis said, and he becomes upset and wants to go talk to Francis's mom, but Scout convinces him to do otherwise, saying it's just not worth it. Which, that's chapter 9. During this chapter, we can see that Scout really cares about Atticus, really cares about her father, and fought to defend his honor in a way. We can also get more wise words from Atticus as he says that it is a sin to kill a mockingbird. This may not seem like much right now in this part of the story, but this is a very important symbol throughout the entire story, is the mockingbird. And we can start to see that certain characters may resemble one as we continue. Atticus is also very adamant in taking the case, as the judge gave it to him as he felt that he was Tom Robinson's best chance. And this also just goes to show how dedicated Atticus is to being a lawyer. Chapter 10. The Robinson case made Atticus the talk of the town, and Jem and Scout cannot understand why people are criticizing him, even though he's been a very good man. Later, Jem and Scout spot a dog named Tim Johnson rolling down the street looking very strange. And they inform Calpurnia, who tells Atticus, and they conclude that the dog is rabid. Atticus arrives with Sheriff Tate, who aims his gun at the dog. Afraid he might miss and launch a bullet into the Radley property, he hands the gun to Atticus, who kills the dog in a single shot. As they leave, the kids hear Miss Maudie calling Atticus one-shot Finch, which she later explains to the kids that among his best attributes, Atticus is the most accurate shot in Macomb County. Some final notes before I end the episode. These chapters are a great prelude into the rest of the story, and they help start developing characters. I really enjoyed reading this part of the book, and I hope you'll enjoy the next episodes to come, as well as this one. Before I send it off, I would like to talk a little bit more about themes, as they are a very large part of To Kill a Mockingbird. Equality is becoming a larger and larger theme as Scout is experiencing the peoples of the town, the townspeople's opinions, and as well as guidance from her father to form her own opinions and see the bigger picture of things. I can't wait to talk about how this is going to come into play during the trial of Tom Robinson. But with that, thank you all for listening to the episode 1 of the To Kill a Mockingbird podcast, and have a good rest of your day.